Right, guys, welcome to the first video in the series for Unit 4 Outcome 2. So Outcome 2 is all about implementing change. So we've been talking about change and the reasons for it and how we identify the need to change through Outcome 1. This is now the whole outcome as a whole is all about actually how managers can take a business through a change process, this order of implementing the actual change. Okay, so that's where we're kind of going with the 10 key knowledge dot points that we have for this one. We start off with key knowledge 1, which is all about leadership in change. Okay, so here is our study design. First time we've seen this one for this particular outcome. And as always, this is what we're talking about today in this video, the importance of leadership in change management. So what do you need to know this one? Look, I've just kind of, because if you go back to that key knowledge dot point, it's pretty vague. Yeah, it doesn't give us a script, doesn't really tell us much. So all I've done here is like looked at all the questions I'm aware of that I've ever seen on this particular key knowledge dot point. And this one has been in the last few study designs as well. So we've seen some questions on this. And I'm basing this content on the questions that I've seen previously. So I think we're probably going to cover, hopefully, every kind of eventuality that you might see in terms of questions. So first thing, what I think you need to be able to do here is explain in varying degrees of detail. And I mean, you know, for a 2 marker, for a 4 marker, maybe for a 6 marker, the importance of leadership during times of change in business. So I'll give you enough information here that you could answer, you know, a fairly hefty question if you needed to. And then secondly, describing the role of a leader in times of change. So that's kind of the 2 angles we're going to take here. Now, first off, definition. Okay, you need a definition of leading. What is leading? What is leadership? Okay, 3 definitions there. Don't write them all down, but look through them. Maybe write down the one that kind of resonates with you or is going to be easiest for you to remember. There's lots of other ways of defining leadership or leading as well. But I think the key is if you look through all of those 3 and pretty much, I would imagine any other definition of this, you would see the key points are influencing and achieving objectives. So you can see achieving is included in all of those 3 definitions that you see. That's really fundamental to what leadership is. Influencing other people to achieve the objectives that need to be achieved. You're getting other people to do the work for you, kind of in essence, is what we're talking about. So really that's the key. So whatever definition you're going to use should always really definitely have the word influencing and then ultimately going with achieving objectives. Okay, so that's really the key for your definition there. Now, the importance of leadership, which is what, you know, the key knowledge dot point says we should be talking about. So look, fundamentally, at its most base level, leadership is all about motivating and inspiring employees to achieve the objectives of the business. Okay, now employees are obviously a key stakeholder in the change process. So most of this is focused on the leadership of them. And in fact, throughout most of the outcome, a lot of the focus is on employees. There is actually a key knowledge dot point, I think it's number 8, towards the end of the outcome, where we're looking at the impact or the effect of change on a range of other stakeholders as well. We do tend to think mainly of the employees, but the arguments that we're talking about here could also be extended out and are applicable to other stakeholders that might be impacted by change as well. So just to bear that in mind. Now, communication is an absolutely key part of this process. Okay, the leader needs to keep all stakeholders who could be impacted by the change informed about the change. Initially, first off, you know, the reasons for the change, what it's going to look like, so on and so forth. But then also ongoing throughout the change process, this communication needs to be maintained. The leader needs to be ready and available to answer any questions that stakeholders might have about this process that the business is going through. Okay. Now, it can be really, really difficult time for both leaders and their teams. Okay, think back to restraining forces. Employees can be a big restraining force, as can managers. It's a really, really stressful time. Yeah, times of change. People can be uncomfortable with change. People like to be in their comfort zone. People don't necessarily like this process of change. So it can be a really, really tough time. And leaders have to make some really, really tough decisions whilst taking into account the perspective of all of the different stakeholders that can be impacted by the change, including the employees who, like we said, might be anxious, might be nervous, might be very uncomfortable with the whole thing. Now, in times of change, there's always a clear goal that has to be achieved. Okay, there's always an outcome we're trying to reach. A strong leader is going to make sure that all employees are aware of what that goal is, why that goal is there, and what each employee's role in actually achieving that goal is as well. Okay, if they can do that, they can motivate and inspire the employees to work towards the goal. You can also equate this to reducing the restraining force of the employees. If you think about it, if you do all of that stuff there, you're going to offset some of that impact of the employees in respect of them being a restraining force. Something really important to add in here, whatever you are writing in a response about leadership in change and the importance of leadership in change, always get this point in, and I would generally use this to finish off whatever you're saying. The point being, without strong leadership, successful change is unlikely to happen. Okay, fundamentally, that underlines the whole thing. If you don't have a good leader taking you through change, that change is not going to happen. So I would always use this just to kind of finish off or conclude whatever you're saying in response to a question on this topic. Okay, really, really important point to make. Now, some questions ask about the role of a leader during times of change. It's just kind of a slightly different way of really asking the same question. But because it says role, just kind of reframing this and coming up with some ideas that you could use in response to that to come up with actual roles, actual things that a leader might do in a little bit more of a practical black and white sense, just to respond to questions that go down that kind of role route. And here's some things that you could get into your answer here. Okay, so one of the roles of the leader is to oversee and drive the organizational change, and they need to communicate a clear vision. Okay. Secondly, they need to articulate that vision for the change to all the relevant stakeholders. Another role that they need to take on is to motivate and inspire the staff through the use of strong communication and interpersonal skills. Another role is role modeling the new change, so leading by example, leading from the front. Listening to concerns, resolving conflicts as they arise is another role you could say they need to fulfill. And providing support for those who are finding the process difficult. As we've said now many times, the employees are likely, or many employees are likely to be struggling with this. So providing support to them to help them through the change. Okay. I guess fundamentally, again, it's really, really important in times of change that the needs of the employees become a focus as well as the needs of the business. Okay. I mean, that should always be the case, but because change is such a challenging thing to do and a thing that employees find difficult and struggle with, even more so, even more than in sort of normal circumstances, a real focus on the needs of the employees as well as the needs of the business. There needs to be kind of a real balance. Okay. Really, really need to get all the employees on the same page, all working towards the same goals. And if these things don't happen, whatever change it is you're trying to make in a business, it's just not going to happen. It's going to be unsuccessful. And that is all I have for you on leadership in change, guys. So that should be enough there to or at least answer any questions that I can think of that might crop up. So I'll leave you with that one, and we'll be back for Key Knowledge 2 in the next video. Cheers for now.